driving me to do it until having read your research. It was a sense of duty. It was a sense of obligation. It was a sense of, honesty, right? That's how I was raised. It was my blah, 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 right? Something that wasn't disclosed initially that you can then infuse into your research to say, after member checking, I spoke with Mary and she gave me even more of a grounding, more of an understanding of those conditions that motivated her, that led her to become a whistleblower, right? Not that she did it, but how she did it and what motivated her. And then obviously you generalize your finding. Why is that important? Because those conditions will invariably exist for other participants, throughout the world, right? So with respect to the definition, course definition of member checking, the process of confirming, validating qualitative data attained from your participant, right? You want to confirm and validate the data. Here's what I found. Is this what you said? Is this what you meant? Was I correct in my interpretation? Not necessarily did you like what I said or did you not like what I said, right? And also, as part of the member checking, I don't look for participants personally to validate my sort of analytic interpretations. That's not, it's unfair to the participant because, we're researchers. What's important is that I want to make sure that I got the succession of events. Stuff like that is absolutely essential. First this happened, then this happened, then this happened. I got a bit confused. Did you meet her before or after you went to X? Oh no, it was after. Okay, I just want to make sure I got that right. Okay. Member checking again. So I'm going to read two different citations, two different sources concerning member checking. Here's a quote. Quote, member checking, also known as respondent validation, obviously the participant is also known as a respondent. Responding to what? Responding to interview questions. So the respondent is going to validate the information that I got. So sort of basic, right? Member checking, also known as respondent validation, is frequently acclaimed in social sciences as a key tool for establishing credibility in qualitative analysis, right? You establish credibility. Why do you establish credibility? Because you have a twofold redundancy, right? You have the initial narrative, and then you have the confirmation of that narrative, hence the redundancy, by the respondent/participant, validating that what you interpreted or what you said or what you thought that they said was in fact what they meant, what they said, and such. By returning research products to participants, this would be the products you're finding. By returning research products to the participant and using such internal authentication to appraise the integrity of findings, this method is argued to function as a qualitative proxy for traditional quantitative evaluation of rigor. Right? I'm not going to get into the quantitative method in which this is done, because I'm not teaching quant, I'm teaching qual. With respect to qualitative data assessment, we want to make sure that insofar as I'm checking the credibility of my findings, I report those findings back in some regard to my participant/respondent. My participant checks off and says, sure, that's what I said. It's pretty simple. Next, while informing participants about the research aims at the outset of the project, while informing participants about the research aims at the outset of the project is a vital final research findings may not resonate with those aims, right? It might be the case that and this is what I said before with respect to the participants' idea of consenting to the research. This is specifically why the idea of member checking is a subset of consent, right? You want to make sure that the participant recognizes that there might have been changes throughout the process, right? The participant might, and even this happens all the time, right? The participant might tell you the story, but it wasn't the fact that you got the story wrong. It was the fact that the participant got this. I actually got the story wrong. I can't believe it. It's their own life story, and it's not like they're lying or they're trying to deceive you. There's no deception involved. It's just sheer error, right? I mean, think about our life stories. How many things have happened to us during the course of our life? There's no way you're going to remember all of that stuff. Somebody asks you something that happened 10, 15, 20 years ago, they tell the story. They tell the story, and then, they're not going to call you up and be like, hey, Bob, I got the story wrong, my bad. But if you, as researcher, goes to them and say, hey, Mary, I'm going to be back in town on the 22nd. Can we meet up can you share your story with me again? I just want to check that I got everything right. I'm so glad you called. Actually, when I told you this, it was something else, right? So the idea is, it's not to catch the researcher in researcher error. Sometimes that is the case, right? I mean, that's primarily the case. It's to make sure that we have reported and recorded our findings properly. But it could also be the case, and this happens, that the participant, him or herself, has misconstrued some facts of the story, right? Has misrepresented some facts of the story, has embellished on some facts of the story. Another important point, don't want to go off on a tangent, but embellishment is absolutely important. I wish I had the time to do that, because I'm actually interested in this, but I'm not going to do this now. I'll just talk for maybe a minute or 2 minutes on this one point. There are times in which you might have a feeling during your research, and I document this, that the participant isn't lying about the events, but the participant might be embellishing, right? They're adding a little bit more to just how brave they were. Or they're adding a little bit more as to how forthright they were at the moment, right? So that it's not that it's a lie, it's just a heightened truth, is what I like to call embellishment, right? Embellishment is like, it's the truth, but it's a little, I really did save the cat, but, the fact that my life was at danger when I climbed up the tree and blah, 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 and almost fell and died, all of that embellishment is something that, if I'm presenting in my findings, I want to make sure, especially if I sense that it's embellishment. Yeah, I remember you said that you saved the cat, right? Yeah, I saved the cat. And it was really dangerous, right? There was a sense of fear that you had that you were going to fall out the tree, and I'm being super ridiculous in my example. But you get the idea, right? So it's not just the facts that you want to have validated by the participant, but you want that really qualitative assessment, that thing that you can't quite assess. You want what I call the embellishment, right? You want the embellishment validated. Right? Because if you report your findings, let's say you're doing research, and I'll stop at this point, let's say you're doing your research on some aspect of heroism, and the participant recognizes at the outset of the research that your research is governed by a discourse on heroism, and the participant actually did some heroic stuff, whatever it might be, right? Firefighter, car's on fire, had to go in and spray the car down and, save somebody who was trapped inside the car, right? When in actuality, what really happened was rather mundane. They hosed the car down, they opened the door and pulled the kid out. That was the extent of it, all of 2 minutes, right? But in describing the event, it was all of these all of these adjectives and these adverbial responses where it was a heightened expression of the event. I want to check to make sure that the embellishments of the story, if that follows, right? The embellishments of the story are also correct, right? My interpretation of just how courageous, of how scared, of how angry, of how upset, of how emotionally attached that you were to some fact is also correct, not just the facts, right? So it's both the facts and the participant's recollection of his or her emotional attachment to the facts that I'm trying to assess, right? A little bit deeper, but I'm just throwing it out there because it's something that I do myself. Right after the highlight, the precise nature of consent for the participant may only become clear eventually at the end of the study, which is obvious, right? The participant might not fully understand what it is that has transpired, because obviously the nature of what we do, just the very fact that you're watching this video, right? This video is abstracted, right? This is a very niche, specific sort of topic, right? Regular John and Jane Doe not going to watch, there's no need to watch this video unless you're doing and conducting qualitative research, right? The very fact that you're watching this video, right? The very fact that I'm providing this video for you to watch means that the discourse is for researchers, by researchers, among researchers. Participants don't have any interest, nor should they, in this type of material, right? In this type of discourse. So that you have to recognize that their interpretation of what's going on might change as they realize, and you give them a little access into the contents of your mind, right? Here's where I'm taking it. Yeah, I know you told me that you were going to talk about whistleblowing, or you're going to talk about bravery or courage, but I didn't think it was going to unfold like that. Wow, that, I'm a little uncomfortable. I'm a little uncomfortable with the fact, yes, I did it, so on, but it